been moving more towards Sony equipment for video work. Tried to make the Z30 function, but the main purpose I got that camera was 4K video, and it overheated over maybe 25 minutes pretty consistently, even just outputting HDMI. In this case, I swapped it for the Sony ZV-E10. And so far, this has been working decently well, outputting 4K. I've been using it in 30 frames a second mode, which has a crop. Not ideal. Obviously, it would have been better if I could buy a more expensive one, but not in the cards. So this is probably going to live on my video rig a lot of the time. Use it for photos as well, or whatever else. This is the Atomos Ninja V. I do have the add-on pack for HEVC encoding. That was an extra cost at the time, but the newer ones I think come with that feature. But anyways, I could record a very efficient codec in here, and I don't need to do a ton of adjustment to my video stuff a lot of the time. It saves on space. Space costs money to try to save my projects. So stuff like that. This is very nice. And having a camera that actually can work for long periods of time. Let's say I'm doing a video about a light or something. 25 minutes of recording with the Z30 outputting HDMI is not enough. There can be times where I spend an hour, 2 hours or something. I just want to have the camera going, working. Obviously I could do 1080p, but if I'm trying to push towards 4K, try to do 4K as much as possible. Now, I haven't fully tested this at 4K for super long periods of time, but so far so good. Obviously the big downside is that crop in 4K 30. So eventually I'm going to do something with this, probably maybe with the A6000, swap it for this eventually, and then get another camera, put it in here. I needed another AC adapter, so I picked up another F1TP AC adapter for the older Sony battery. I have 2 other ones of this exact one. They have sent me AC adapters in the past, but in this case, purchased multiple now as well. They've been consistent. Obviously, using third-party adapters, there is some potential risk, but I've never run into any situations where the AC adapter has destroyed a camera. But of course, try at your own risk. Pop this open. Comes in a simple box. What do we got in here? Standard power cable. The DC coupler for the Sony NP-FW50 battery type. This is the older Sony battery type. Obviously, if you have a newer Sony camera, this is not going to work for you. So very simple setup. You've got your connector. So if it's a quick release type situation, you can swap that, and then the actual AC adapter. Now, they did send me one really early on that had some issues, but sent it back to them. They sent me another one. Yeah. And then I purchased the previous one, as well as this one with the spec on the back. Class 2 power supply, output 7.6 volts at 2 amps. So I'm going to take this one and connect it to this setup so I can have a dedicated AC adapter for it. For the AC adapter, it's pretty simple. You're going to connect that breakout with the DC coupler, connect the power cable. You're basically good to go once you put that in the camera. I prefer this to doing some type of USB-C power delivery thing. That just doesn't seem ideal to keep the battery in there. DC coupler goes into the camera like any normal battery would. There is a rubber flap on the back of the battery door that you need to loosen. You don't pull it off, you just loosen it. It has to stay on there and don't break it. And you should hear the click. Route your cable through the back hole that just opened up, lock it in, and that's it. This camera should have power now. I was swapping it with my other View, which is currently this one. This is the Sony A7S camera, and it is set to manual focus. The sync is probably off. I haven't tried to adjust that for all of my cameras in this setup, but I also have another camera, and it shows the Sony. Wait up, whoop, whoop, over there. Now this camera is not good, and it only does auto exposure, so that is the original Sony A7S camera. Uses the same battery type as the A6000 and the ZV-E10. So now I have all the same battery type for Sony, and I still have my Nikon Z5 for photography. A friend gave me the capture device for this one. It's a very low cost one. For my A6000 main setup, I'm still using the AVMATRIX Capture device that I made a video on in the past, and that has just been very consistent for the most part. And I'm using a new computer now, and it's been working fine. In addition to that, I have another thing that I'm going to try. With the case of lenses for video stuff, I've been moving towards zoom lenses. I have the A6000 setup with the Sigma 18 to 50mm f2.8 APS-C lens. It's very nice, fast lens. Distortion's not ideal at the wide end, but other than that, it's worked well. On the Sony A7S, I picked up the 24 to 70 f4. It's basically the cheapest autofocus decent lens I could find, Sony branded. It works. I don't really do a ton of autofocus with that setup. I just do singular focus and then just leave it. That camera is contrast based autofocus, so it's not ideal for continuous autofocus. Why do I have that? Because it's cheap. and it does 4K output. Just do 1080p output because I don't have a setup for 4K at the moment into the computer, but it works. For this setup now, I have the Sony 16 to 70mm f4. It's been pretty consistent and actually is less distorted than the Sigma, which is nice, but it is f4 instead of f2.8. Not ideal for APS-C, but it works. Consistency and being able to explore 4K video more so is ideal. I can do hands-on videos hopefully with this setup in my hands-on area, and I won't have to care as much about the camera overheating now compared to the Z30. Before that, it was using the Canon EF-M equipment, so the M6 Mark II was pretty good in 4K video, but it wasn't true 4K, and just that system was dead. I could have kept it around, just used that. It would have been fine for the most part, but yeah, I eventually got rid of it. So that's the general direction I'm going with my video stuff. The HDMI lag on Sony devices seems lower than the Nikons that I've used. I still have the Z5, gonna keep it for photos for the most part, use it for occasional video if I need to for whatever reason. Into the future, what I would go for is probably the FX30, FX3 cameras. Those make the most sense. Maybe the Panasonic ones where you got the S5 II, S5 IIX cameras, but all of those are very expensive. Anyways, that was a look at this random videography stuff. Scott Photography Bonds, I see ya.